streaming is now being figured out. Is it? Ah, I don't know what's up because the mic works now. More gear. Just throw more gear at it. Yeah, 1 million lines more. Yeah. Then conversely, there was this BSD. I don't know if what it was free BSD developer who said that if you can't do it with free Hello. Still works.
Okay.
Are the levels okay? I guess so. Okay. Welcome everybody to the last day of the conference. My name is Ilmari Langangas, and I work for the Document Foundation as a mentor and a software janitor. In this talk, I'll look at various technical things about the Document Foundation Wiki that I have dealt with in the past couple of years, especially concerning language translation. Our wiki can be found in the web address wiki.documentfoundation.org. At TDF, we use the Media Wiki software, which also powers Wikipedia. We offer it as a content management system that is open for anyone to use. If that doesn't sound crazy enough, consider that it's a content management system with a single input field. This single input field certainly simplifies things from the point of view of the database structure, but on the other hand, it creates many complications in practical use. In modern content management systems, there are many possibilities to provide an experience that doesn't get in the way of the editors. But as there are no content types in MediaWiki, all kinds of complex things appear alongside the content itself. We can use templating and various forms of markup. One problem arising from this is that the system often cannot help us very much when we make mistakes. It can also be awkward to produce custom layouts or navigation, as all the elements are confined to the content box. The work on moving our translations into the system provided by Translate extension has been going on for 4 years. The end is finally in sight, as there are only a few dozen relevant articles to take care of. It has been kind of a bittersweet experience. On one hand, the management of translations is now coherent, and there is a user interface to support translators. On the other hand, the famous single input field got quite a bit messier for everyone due to how the mechanism of the translation system is exposed in the Wikitext source. The developers at Wikimedia are aware of the suboptimal nature of this and would like to come up with a solution that removes the need for editors to deal with all the translation markup. Lucky for us, their budget is orders of magnitude above ours, so they're able to take on ambitious research projects like these. When setting up content for translation, we generally want to minimize the amount of unnecessary stuff the translators need to handle. This typically happens by carefully including only relevant content inside translate elements. This is also the source of much tedious work. Here you can see how a code block as a whole is not included for translation, while code comments are explicitly picked for translation. After painstakingly adding 100 translate elements into a long article and clicking show preview, only to find out you made a mistake somewhere, can feel like a punch to the gut. Fortunately, clicking save changes will actually provide help in locating your mistake. The image shows an error screen that omits some content and allows us to notice that the problem is with the last paragraph shown there. When using templates, automatic references to translated versions are achieved by using a magic word suffix. This has the downside that when the template has not yet been translated, visitors will see an ugly red link. Fortunately, after the next MediaWiki upgrade, we can use the special My Language prefix instead, and this will show the English version in case of a missing translation. And here is an example of a red template links in a Danish translation of a calc function article. When preparing the calc function articles for translation, the amount of repetitive work started to really get on my nerves. The articles often have tables, which ideally need their cell content broken up into separate translation entries, so translators don't need to look at distracting pieces of wiki markup. I went ahead and created a Python script to do this automatically, It works against the local text file and also handles numbers, so they are not added for translation. And there are lots of numbers, you can imagine, in those articles. It makes use of the very helpful Wiki text parser library. And here is a snippet of the script, which is available in the Wiki guide for translators. Still, the repetitive work can't be escaped. Often I copy Wiki articles into a text editor for comfortable editing. Many editors have functionality that allows to speed up the insertion of markup. And here is a snippet in Kate editor to wrap a piece of text inside translate tags. Another way to reduce the burden for translators is to create templates for reoccurring bits of text. Here we see the Wikitext source for some templates used in calc function articles. An awkward thing about this is that we need to sprinkle these no include elements all over the place. And this is of course confusing when seen in the translation interface. I'll keep my fingers crossed that there will be a nice solution to this in the future. While writing this presentation, I subscribed to a Wikimedia task called Structured Localization Framework for Templates, which sounds promising. The visual editor is a feature that we've been itching to try for many years. Its first version required a Node.js component, but later it was implemented in pure PHP, making the deployment much simpler. However, our use of Translate extension blocked us from trying it out, as the manipulation of translatable elements in the visual editor was cumbersome. With the next upgrade, we will have another reason to celebrate, as the Wikimedia Code Ninjas have brought us a gift. Translation elements are directly editable in the visual editor. In this screenshot, we can see that the element tags and markers are indicated in gray. They will later experiment with other ways of representing the elements in the UI. MediaWiki supports automated manipulation of pages by using an API. But for simple replace operations, it's nice to have a UI. Last year we installed the replace text extension, which I have put into good use. It can only be used by administrators, and it has limited support for regular expressions. Funnily, I use it also to find stuff, because the results are better than what you get with the normal search. We should probably look into installing a proper search backend. When working on the developer guide this year, we noticed horrible slowness in page load time. It turned out that the code block highlighting library, Pigments, was doing crazy things on the server. Fortunately, the maintainers of International Scratch Wiki for the popular Scratch visual programming language had developed an alternative code highlighting extension which uses prism.js. It worked great for us, and we sent them improvements for right-to-left language support. The screenshot shows an example of highlighted Java code. Extensions enrich MediaWiki. Sometimes they are merely wrappers for JavaScript libraries, though. A couple of years ago, we discovered that we could get rid of many extensions by creating widgets. This frees up valuable testing time from our infra team whenever there's an update to MediaWiki. The widget feature is itself provided by an extension. Only administrators can create or edit widgets due to security reasons, but anyone can add them into pages. We have widgets for listing issues in Bugzilla and Redmine, embedding Nextcloud calendars, listing calc functions in a searchable grid, which you can see on the screen, embedding video files and YouTube videos. And also during the conference, I had some discussions, and I realized that we need to implement something to automatically provide the translated calc function names to reduce the burden even more from translators. So that's a nice widget idea there. As mentioned before, there are some things in wiki management that always require boring manual work. One way to make things less tedious is using the Grease Monkey browser extension. It allows executing JavaScript that manipulates web pages. I use it by writing scripts and associating them with a keyboard shortcut. An example of a boring task is marking pages for translation. It cannot be done automatically for dozens of pages because they might contain errors. With a Grease Monkey script, I can press a key to open dozens of pages that have pending changes. And then for each page, I press a different key that clicks the correct button, saving me from mind-numbingly repetitive scrolling and mouse clicking. And here I can show it in action in a video. Here's me pressing a key, and then everything explodes. Now I have dozens of tabs. Now I start pressing another key. You can see I don't have to scroll down and use my mouse. That's always a bonus. So, after many years of tinkering, I finally feel I have a good understanding on how to keep the wiki operating smoothly. So if you need help in figuring something out in TDF's wiki, let me know. I want to thank Niklas Lackström and everyone who has helped me on the MediaWiki IRC channel. I look forward to making use of the future innovations the Wikimedia folks come up with. Yeah, that's it. And thanks. So, any questions? Does Eyal have a question?
So, what are the fractions of the entire wiki that we have that are translated to, and to how many on average are they if that's some numbers that you have off the top of your head?
So do you mean like statistically?
Yes, statistically, how many is to how many languages is a page currently translated on average?
On average, okay, yeah. Off the top of my head, might be something like 5. But of course, it's changing all the time. You know,
yes,
we're getting like 500 calc function articles. So Steve Fanning is doing this insane work of cleaning them up. They are like legacy from some other like guide appendix or whatever, and we're gradually moving them to translation. So that's kind of skewing the average because then you suddenly have hundreds of new pages. So for the calc function articles, for example, I think the average might be more likely like 4 or 3 at the moment. But then we have, for example, the main page, which probably has like 20 translations. And of course, with the migration to the new system, it's easy to see what got outdated. When you see that the main page might have actually like 50 different languages or whatever, they're like legacy from the old times, and they might have maybe like one paragraph in the language that then doesn't make any sense to migrate, because yeah. But I did quite a lot of work saving time from the translators, copying stuff over. Especially the main page, and any index page like that is very tedious because it's broken down into bullet points and whatever. Still more.
That makes me wonder whether when deciding on updating pages or deciding on page structure, whether it's a good idea to try to keep like some central pages more static and prefer adding content in subpages so that the translations don't become outdated more slowly. It's not so much an idea for you, more like an idea for people who write contents on the wiki more generally, to maybe prefer subpages because of that consideration.
Yeah, might be. Regina?
Is there a step-by-step guide for authors of wiki pages, what they need to do to make their content translatable?
Yes, we have this multilingual wiki article, which was there already many years ago, and it was updated when we started using the Translate extension. I guess it's found pretty easily on the main index page from some language-related section. And it also contains, for example, this Python script that I use for tables. It can be copied from there. And it also advises how to deal with unique content. So which kind of path to use for those, to make a clear separation of unique local pages. Okay, I guess that's it. Thanks.
Do you use your laptop for that?
It's fine, yeah.
Because I've just prepared the 2 pages with my personal data. So somewhere in the room who's not a member of the board of trustees of the TDF? Honestly, because we will maybe reveal some personal data of trustees, and so I would ask anyone which is not a member of the board of trustees to leave the room for this lecture, please. We don't have a YouTube stream of this lecture. You don't want to stream? No, we don't want to stream. We want to record.
No stream.
No stream, only record.
Okay, record but no stream. Okay.
Because maybe we have to edit it a little bit before we publish it. Huh?
Hai prima il voucher sotto mano da leggermi, io lo cerco.
This is actually old Kiev. It's a Russian designer that is making this. We met at years ago at a conference. So he gave me a free account on his backgrounds. Okay. So there. So I try to, yeah. Okay. My voice should be sitting. I mean, you won't see me dancing on the screen, which may be or not be an advantage, I don't know, but anyway. So because I prefer to, you know, I'm Italian and blocking me is like killing me. So the idea of this talk is to go over some of the concepts that we discussed when we had the new marketing plan, but oh, it's okay. Because I think in general, the issue or the problem or the opportunity of the project sustainability is something that we should always keep in mind in general. I mean, we all are here, let's say some of us are paid, and I'm one of them, to work on this project, but we all do something more as volunteers because we love the project anyway. So even people that is earning money by hacking LibreOffice, at the end of the day is always doing something more, or at least this is my perception. I might be wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. I've been in this project for now for almost 20 years. I started with OpenOffice.org in late 2002, and I've never really met people that were doing it only for the money. Were always doing it, of course, for the money. At the end of the month, we all have bills to pay, but also for some passion that is infused in the project. So this is to say that we all want LibreOffice to be here in another 10 years and possibly more. I mean, in another 10 years, I will be 78, so you will have to bear with me because I will probably not walk very well. I will be lost most of my neurons, so you will just look at me like the old guy, the old poor guy. But anyway, some of you will be in their 60s, which is a wonderful time of your life, I can tell you. But everyone wants to be here in 10 years, not here in Milan, but in 10 years somewhere to celebrate another 10 years of LibreOffice. So to make this happen, we have to have a sustainable project. Otherwise, we all know that we will get into oblivion in some way or another. The development will stop, the project, new ideas, developing new communities, growing communities in other geographies will stop anyway, because if the product stalls, then the entire project around the product is bound to be just surviving. We see that with Apache OpenOffice. I mean, there are just a few people taking care of that product, and the product is slowly fading away. By the way, just in the numbers, today is October 1st. In September, our downloads are over almost 3,300,000, which means that we are back at the level of February, which was a very high month. So this means that back from holidays, people have started to re-download LibreOffice in a rather sustained pace. So let's talk a little bit about the productivity market. I will try to analyze and make some guess on numbers. We don't pay the analyst, they ask outrageous amount of money, but we can find some free data around. Maybe they're not last-minute data. I have data from 2017. I've talked 2 weeks ago with a friend at IDC who confirmed most of those data. Of course, I cannot show the IDC data because that is confidential. We are friends, but he shows me the data with the agreement that I can talk about the data but not show them, because they sell them for money. So before 95, documents were printed. Some people here were just born around 95, but in 95 I was 40, and I can tell you that for all of that, my life up to that moment, if I wanted to share contents with another person, I had to print the file, because the interoperability was basically non-existing. There were different programs. Each program had its own proprietary version of the document, and the only way you could reasonably exchange data was saving a TXT file, which was, of course, losing all the visual content of the document. So in around 95, of course for some people before, but around 95 with the internet, we got the incredible opportunity of exchanging contents in a digital way. Of course, at first it was less evident. We all started with PDF, because PDF was the first that allowed to exchange a file in a digital way, seeing the same contents. Of course, it was not editable, but at least you could preserve the look and file of the file. Even large files with a lot of visual content, where you were able to exchange them. And that was the vision of the guy that invented PDF, was we have the opportunity of exchanging that digitally, so now we have a tool that allows that to do that without scanning the page and sending the page, which was a lot more longer process and more tedious. So this evolved, and at that time there were the first real personal productivity application or solutions, because it was more or less at that time that the Office suite were born. Some were born before, but were more kind of conglomerate of application, while in the 90s they became more integrated. Formats were cared more. People started to think about having XML as a basis for the document. So between 2005 and 2010, it was the years, we can call them the years of the standards, because ODF was born in that time frame, and also, of course, Office OpenXML, which is partially a standard, but anyway. These were the years. So these were the years where there was also a lot of discussion about formats, and it was probably the years where the Office suite had the biggest chances of growing. We all know that at the end, in 2009, Oracle acquired Sun. So of course, we know the story of OpenOffice, that unfortunately there was a kind of break in the evolution of the program, because although we started this project, LibreOffice, but in front of the market, especially for people that doesn't know very well and doesn't understand the reality of open source, seeing a product disappear or anyway forking, it's a concept that is not really known outside the open source environment or the technology environment. So of course we lost a little bit, and if you remember, after 2010, people with the growth of the online Office suite, because Google Docs started more or less in that time frame, so they started to be in the market, and people were really excited. Of course, Google and Microsoft put millions of advertising, or even billions of advertising, behind the concept that everything should be in the cloud. And people started to say desktop productivity software is dead, which is not true. But the fact is that the market had almost stopped. There was a decrease, an incredible decrease in the number of products shipped between 2010 and 2015. Then people realized that to do real productivity, you need the desktop. And then they started again to adopt or to work with desktop product. So also if you look at the offering, for instance, from Microsoft, which is still the leading company by far in that market, at first they were offering only Office 365, and now they still sell you Office 365, but you buy Office 365, but then you can download the desktop version. And which means that they try to sell the cloud, but they know that people has to install it on the desktop. So in 2010 we announced LibreOffice. We know the story since 2010. So Office Suite are mature products. I think, I mean, I may be wrong, but I think that they will exist in some terms almost forever. Because, for instance, if you are traveling, it's a lot more practical to have the software on your machine than being connected if you are on a plane, on a train. Yes, there is Wi-Fi, but it's not always ideal. It's not all the connection is not always the good one. Think about very large countries, because in Europe is small. So if you look at the coverage of, let's say, 4G coverage in Italy is almost everywhere. But go to Brazil, go to Argentina, go even to the States, there are areas where the coverage is not, because basically there's no one living in some areas, so it doesn't make the point of bringing fast connectivity. So people will always, there will be people that will always use that on the desktop. And of course, what happens now, it happens that there is a growing attention to digital sovereignty. And this is a huge opportunity for us, because the behavior of Google, Microsoft, and these companies as is now, people is perceiving that these companies are profiling you, are chasing you in some way. So even people that is not into technology starts to understand, also because it's, if you have a little bit of salt in your mind, I mean, you look for an hotel in Milan because you're coming to the LibreOffice conference, and just out of the blue you start receiving advertising about restaurants in Milan, shopping in Milan, how you can move around Milan, and so on and so forth. So even people that is not really into technology understand that there is a connection somewhere between these systems, because otherwise you have just made a research, maybe bought a train ticket, and after 2 days you get the advertising of a restaurant or a shopping center which is not connected to a train ticket. So this for us is a big opportunity, and of course opportunities means that we can find ways of being sustainable, which means getting money at the end of the day, by leveraging the idea of digital or data or whatever sovereignty, because we can guarantee to people that we are not profiling them, even if they use the LibreOffice on mobile or on cloud, because we don't have that interest. Our interest is in growing and making a good software product. We don't have a kind of our project is not an ecosystem of economies like Microsoft that is making money out of the products, servers, advertising, and everything. So, and the same now applies to Google, and the same applies to Amazon, and the same applies to Facebook, but also to other companies that are not part of that, of the so-called big tech. In the same period, we have a huge growth of the open source code in general. It is more true or more visible on servers than on the desktop, but the reality is that even on the desktop, the number of applications that are using an open source stack somewhere is increasing. And this is another opportunity for us, because we are open source. We are a free software project. And therefore, we have not invented ourselves today, so people cannot say, oh yes, you're open source because you're leveraging the opportunity. No, we are open source because we believe in free open source software for the last 20 years. And when we started, there was no interest at all in doing free open source software. There was some interest, but not as big as today, because there are billions of companies living with open source software. But so for us, for most of us, many years have been as volunteers. For many of us, we are ongoing volunteers. I can tell you, for instance, at dinner 2 days ago, people was asking me, but who pays all of this? I say, this is paid by a foundation, by a company, but most of the people that are coming are doing this because of a passion. People ask me, but why are you cooking for 80 people? It's not your... I say, because this is fun. I like it. I like to be with my friends in an evening, and even if we exchange just 10 words, there is a non-said communication between us that says we care for each other. Because I'm sure that if I come to one of your countries, you will be as welcoming as we have tried to be. Because this is part of our big community. To be really friends, even if we meet once a year or maybe never. And we exchange our opinions just by email. And in fact, we should... the fact that LibreOffice is important, we should have some suspect. For instance, this was the last version of the future of open source. Then it became too commercial and it was abandoned. But just by asking people which is your preferred open source project, and LibreOffice was one of the 7 most voted. And that was totally unexpected at the time. And if you look at the other project, they're all server-side, because you have OpenStack, Docker, you have Drupal, Linux, of course, Ubuntu, and Postgres, sorry. Thank you. You see the age is starting to make its effects. And the year after, you know that there was rumors that Ubuntu was going to replace the desktop software with an online suite. So they asked their users, which software do you want? And this was unexpected as well. So LibreOffice is the green one. So the answer was basically unanimous. Because if you have more than, it was, I think, 78%. So 78% of Ubuntu uses that, but it was kind of 5,000, 6,000 people, so a reasonable number of people. And if you look at the other, there's no real comparison. You can say that the other numbers, which are all less than 4%, were just by chance. You know, I don't want to write LibreOffice, so I cross on Google Docs, but when you have one product that is almost 80%, you don't have, I mean, you don't even have to ask if the champion, if the numbers were good, because it's almost no discussion. So, and this was surprising in a sense, but it shows the opportunity that we have. Because at least in the environment of let's say, technical users, power user, LibreOffice is the de facto Office suite. This is 4 years ago. Let's say that it has changed, but you don't go down from 78 to 15. You may go down from 78 to 75 to 70, but in any case, it's a huge percentage. I don't know, but let's assume that it's not up. Let's try to be humble and in what we do. Market revenues. These are analyst data. So these are real data from analysts. 2022, the market is $27 billion. 2023, 28.4. And we get up in 2025 at 31 plus. Okay. And this is the trend, the growing trend. As you see, during the 2020 was down, and then it's up. It's growing 5% per year, which is also an opportunity. There are new people installing. Of course, population is growing, people are adopting, younger people are adopting PCs. There is a growing number of users. This is Office Suite in general. And the value is not the commercial value, because they, if you look at there is open source inside as well. So of course the commercial value is not exactly the same. This is what the analysts call addressable market. So the market, the potential market, and what is astonishing is that they give us 9% of this addressable market. So are we producing 2.5 billion of revenues? I don't think so. If we had 2.5 billion of revenues, probably would be, I don't know, in Copacabana, renting a kind of tent in Copacabana and renting the whole Copacabana beach for a week because we have enough money. No, of course, joking, we have to be careful in how we spend our money because anyway, we are a charity, but so this means that we have a huge opportunity in front of us. It's not easy because if you think, let's of course take Microsoft as an example. Microsoft is the result of 40 years of right investment in the right direction. Then we can say that Microsoft is evil as a company, but if you look at the story, they have started to invest in some direction 10 years before the other companies. And after 10 years, people say, oh, now I understand why they were doing this. But the fact is that only Bill Gates as his group had the vision of investing in some direction. Then they did it wrong with internet, but of course, when you are such a big company, you can make some mistakes in some areas, but if you do it correctly in another one. And if you remember, one of the mantras of Bill Gates was the user will never be able to look into our documents. This is written into, I think, at least 100 emails, 100 Bill Gates emails. So the user will never be able to look into our documents. And he wrote it after Office OpenXML was approved. Not only before, but even after the so-called standard was approved. So we cannot do the same thing that Microsoft has done, of course. It's impossible in some cases. I would be against doing huge lobbying efforts and spending in let's say questionable lobbying amounts in some areas, while doing monitoring is a perfect. I would support doing TDF doing monitoring. I wouldn't support TDF doing the lobbying that is done in several environments. So how much are the product used? Open source, this is 2017, but my friend tells me that the percentage is, that 16 is now 15. And of course, it's not just LibreOffice. This is open source, so you have more than LibreOffice. So currently using open source is 15% of users. The fact is that today, and these are global users, so it's 3 billion users. The problem is that today, only a percentage of the users is using only one Office suite. Most of them are using 2 Office suites. Sometimes one in the cloud and one on the desktop. Sometimes the same in the desktop and the cloud. Different ones. It depends from the work they're doing, the convenience, this is a fact. This is now a fact for everyone. But we can be one of the two. So we don't want to be the one. Let's say that we want to be one of the 2 Office suites that are used. And if we are 15%, you have 80% opportunity of growing. Because these are the people that basically do not know open source. So we can do a lot to be there, and we have to do it together as a project, and therefore we have to do it as a foundation, ecosystem, our friends, because this is the only way where we can inform the market of the opportunity. Because of course we cannot force anyone to use LibreOffice, but we can inform the market of the opportunity of using LibreOffice and of using it in a correct way, so to adopt it for free if they deserve to have it for free, and to pay some money if they have to pay some money because they need it in a certain way. Size of the companies. These are the percentage, but you see we have a bigger opportunity. The smaller the company, or let's say the mid-size the company, the bigger is the opportunity for us. Large companies, of course, have more difficulties. We all know that migrating 100,000 desktop is not a trivial task. So of course, if you have 100,000 desktop, you probably think it about not 100,000 times about migrating, but you think a lot about migrating. If you are smaller, it's easier to make the change. So I'm not saying that we have to ignore the large companies, because in any case there is a 12% that may be 10% today, but anyway, is by far more than we know. By far more than we know. But we can tell them, guys, we have certified people that can help you. We have companies that can sell you a product that is done for your needs. Can we sit around the table and discuss your opportunity? Never talk about the problem. The opportunity of moving to LibreOffice. And I think we have to work, of course, TDF as a charity cannot be a sales agent for ecosystem companies, of course, but we can chase the opportunities and then address the opportunities with the best mix of competencies that we have in the project. And I think that we have to start, and this is my opinion, so you can blame me as much as you want, but this is my opinion, we have to start thinking more really as an entity that can address different markets and therefore work together and work in a way that allows us to grow the LibreOffice share in the market. Because that is the only way that I see going forward. Because if we continue to think, no, this is not my business, then the problem is that too many people think that it's not our business and therefore we miss the opportunities. I will tell you a little bit more about, and sorry for being long, but I think it's important. At least I think it's important, then blame me if you don't think it's important. But I will tell you a little bit more about the history of the Italian Ministry of Defense, which I think is really a nice history on how it should be managed. Then it can be managed 10 times as better, but at least it gave results. And this is interesting. Of course, these are public. I will share them, use them, because I think that gives us some insights. Look at where the blue, the dark blue is. Quality of customer support. We have to work here, guys. We have to work, not that we have to, because the first answer is, okay, we hire 100 people. No, because this is perception. If you are down here, means that the perception is bad. Not the reality, because probably people think, there's basically no support. Let's improve it. For instance, we have never thought about sending automatic replies to user list. We send an automatic reply to the download list, which is suboptimal. We should probably improve it, because I've had exchanges with some users said, your first reply is a little bit misleading, so let's work at it. But for instance, at user mailing list, why don't you get an automatic reply that says, it has been received, but there are volunteers working on it, so don't expect an answer in 2 hours. But if you don't get an answer in 5 days, please resend your message, because we all have a job and we may have missed your message. Let's think about this kind of just care of the user, which is not doing anything wrong to people. We are not telling them that we profile them by hard coding all their data and somewhere, but let's see if we can improve this. We have Telegram groups. We do a good job on Telegram groups in some areas, but I think we probably could do a better job. We have Discourse. And Discourse, there is a large amount of questions. In some cases, the questions maybe deserve an answer earlier, but of course, if you don't have people looking at that, it's a problem. So even on Discourse, we should maybe make it clear that most of the answers are provided by volunteers, and therefore people cannot, because that is the perception, customer support. If you look at it, I would expect ease of setup to be lower, because if you look at the emails that we get and say, oh, LibreOffice is a nightmare to install. Yes, of course, it's a small number of people that says this, but our installation process is less straightforward than other Office suites. This for sure. So we can either improve the installation process or make people aware that the installation process is a little bit more tedious than the other ones, but it's also a free software. So we want to assure you that all the details are processed in the right way. And I'm not going, of course, cost effectiveness, but that was trivial to in. Easy to manage. Built for professionalism. We have to improve this. I mean, LibreOffice is as professional as any other Office suite. Why it has to be there? And you see the gap with Microsoft Office. It's not true. So let's use this and think how we can improve or send up the blue dots in the different areas. We have never really used security as a marketing tool, and I agree that we shouldn't do, but maybe making more visible the security process that we apply to the software. I mean, I'm sure that if I talk to Kaulan in front of the ocean at night, in front of the fire, and he will give me information on the security process that if we transform in a short text, will communicate a lot to users. Because I'm sure that you are doing a lot more than what is visible outside. Because what is visible are the patches, the CVS, and that is visible because it's communicated. But I'm sure that we do a lot more than that. And therefore, we should be better at making people aware of all of this. And this is the last one. So these are the most important attributes when considering Office productivity. So reliable, user-friendly, secure are the first three. And built for professionalism is the fourth. So we are not doing terribly well in these four areas. And we should improve. Let's do some more focused thinking, some more focused communication all together, because I think this is useful not only for the LibreOffice community, but it's also useful for Collabora and Allotropia for their versions. They're free to ignore, of course, but I think it's important because the attributes are the same for all the software that is based on LibreOffice. So we should really work better together in our marketing to have a message that is really coherent between the different companies. And I think I'll task myself and Mike to work more on this, because I think it's an opportunity, work better together, work on some messages, on some tools together, because that is an opportunity for all of us. And now, sorry for being, but I think, I hope you find it interesting. It's something that can help us. So we know our project model, so I will not, but basically when we started, we said it's a free office suite, so free software. But we don't want to have one company that is leading everything on so we try to have a community and an ecosystem of companies. We should grow the ecosystem, of course, but I think let's be clear, if we don't grow the addressable market, it's difficult that the ecosystem will grow. Because growing the ecosystem without growing the addressable market means that the current companies will make less money. And I don't think this is what we want. I think we want them to be as successful as they can, and then add other companies that are successful. So this means that we have to grow the addressable market. We have to, sell more LibreOffice. All together, again, of course, with respect for the reciprocal tasks, responsibilities, but all together, we have to grow the market that we are addressing. Otherwise, there's no way that we can, it all stays theoretical. You know, the exercise that we did the other day with Uwe, there was grow the ecosystem, which was rather important. But grow the ecosystem means grow the project, because otherwise each one of us I will have to slim down 40 kilos instead of 25, and each one has to eat a lot less than, because there won't be money for everyone, and this is not what we want. And sorry to stress the money. I mean, I'm not a greedy person, but at the end of the month, I have to pay the bills like anyone else. So we need to allow people to pay their bills and to have fun and to grow the project and to do all the nice stuff that we are doing, but we can do better. So who are the stakeholders? Here, let's be clear also on this. We are stakeholders, of course. Community members, we have an incredible connection with the project. So of course, let's say we are not the ideal people to look at the project, because we are so much into the project that our vision is not abstract enough from the project. But I've tried to look at the project like from outside, but it's difficult. And then we have users. Users have no personal involvement. They don't even, most of them, they don't even pay for the software. And when you don't pay for something, your ties are almost nothing. So we have to create first an emotional tie with the product. We have to make the user more proud of being LibreOffice users. And the problem is that we are in a market where there are commodities. So the value of the product is, in general, small, is perceived as a small value. Open source sustainability. This is something where there is a large discussion. Not every day, but every now and then there are people that come out with very interesting documents. Especially, so Heartbleed was a turning point, and we all agree on that, but let's focus on the last two. So in 2016, Nadia Egbal, she's a researcher, was funded by the Ford Foundation in the States to make a research following the Heartbleed bug. And it's basically a research paper, but it's a book. It's over 160 pages. It's Roads and Bridges, the unseen labor behind our digital infrastructure. You can download it free from the internet, but if you send me an email, I already have the PDF, so I'm happy to share the PDF. Second one, in 2019, Dries, and I will go a little bit over Dries' words, has written this post, which is basically a long one, balancing makers and takers to scale and sustain open source. This is extremely interesting. Dries has done a hell of a job in looking at the problem under different point of view. Dries Buitert, if you don't know him, is the guy that developed Drupal and then created Akuya. Akuya is the value-added, one of the value-added, the biggest one, value-added company on Drupal. So he's a brilliant developer. He lives in Belgium, I think. He is very friendly, but he did a very good job in studying the project. So I will steal Dries' words because I think he has really got the core of the issue. So small communities can rely on volunteers, but as the project grows, you need, the governance needs to be reformed so the project can be maintained more easily. So 3 models: self-governance, privatization, and centralization. So of course, I think the problem is privatization, okay, is a choice, that it's not open source anymore. So if we go to self-governance or centralization, the reality is that what Dries suggests is to improve self-governance to the next level, which is a challenge, but it happens. It may happen. Just to make it clear the process that Dries makes this example. So the roads were created by volunteers because in the old days you have to reach the other village and you create the road. Then they are improved by businesses. You can make, once upon a time, you were paying taxes to go on the roads. So of course the business had an interest. And then the infrastructure at the end is managed by the government, so you go to centralization. Of course the project can be similar, but if you want to maintain open source, you cannot, you need to have a different privatization concept. So he writes and says, first, there is a caveat that says, I understand that my opinions may not be shared by everyone, but again, I think they are really interesting. Let's be very, my personal idea, but I think if we think really about the issue, the problem, we cannot have a project of the size of LibreOffice if there isn't some money associated somewhere. And that cannot just be donation money, because our reach is far beyond the level of the money that we get with donations. There's no way. I mean, it's either we stop the project, we reduce the project, but our project has a global reach. And when you have global reach, it would be fantastic to run the project as a group of friends, but guys, there are 160 countries in the world and having a group of 160 friends that meet every week in face-to-face is impossible. There are language issues. We all know the issues that we have. So we need some professionalism that I think we are already applying to the project, but we need also the money to improve the professionalism to the next level. Otherwise, some of the challenges that we have, and most of these challenges we are aware, we will never be able to reach the objective. So he talks a little bit about this, and of course says, I'm not saying that every community has to change the model, but of course there is a point where you have to think seriously about the model. And then he makes what I think is a really interesting, important definition. He makes a distinction between makers and takers. So makers are the companies that are born, of course the open source project, but also the companies that are born out of open source. So they develop open source software, and usually they invest a large chunk. He considered that by default 50%, may not be 50%, but of course he has to give up an estimation. So he says they invest 50% of their money in improving open source. Then of course with the other 50% they make business, they make money, as it is normal for companies. And then there are the takers. The takers are the people that leverage open source, do a little bit, and then take all the rest. And he says this is 10 and 90. So they invest 10% on open source and they take 90% out of open source. I've thought a little bit, I've talked, I had a couple of discussion with Dries. We had a couple of calls. He convinced me to take his numbers as good. So let's say that makers are 50-50, takers are 10 and 90. Then we can discuss for days if it's a different percentage. So the difference between makers and takers is not always clear, because in some cases a taker can seem a good citizen of the open source environment. The reality is that he's not a really good citizen. But the difference, he says, as a rule of thumb, makers invest in growing the company and open source, and takers are growing the business and let the other take care of the open source part, which I think is basically okay. And therefore, and that's the final one, and this is how makers can defend from takers. Because of course, if you invest 90%, you will have an unfair advantage over a company that is in the same market and invests 50%, because you invest 40% more. So he says the only way that makers can defend them is by, one of the choices, of course, is what several projects have done. They've changed their license. So they went away from open source, like Elastic, like others. And therefore, that way, you reduce the possibility of leveraging the software by takers. But if you want to stay open source, the only way is to improve the quality of the project. This is not written here, but is if you read, and again, you can download Dries' blog, but if you want it, I've made a PDF out of it, so I can send you the PDF. The conclusion that he says is that only by growing the project as an entity, makers can defend from takers. Otherwise, the end will always be this one. So this is maker, and these are takers. So if you see the visual representation of what 50-50 against 10-90 means, you don't have any doubt. This one, if that one doesn't work together with the project, so doesn't work together with all the other members of the project ecosystem, and with the volunteers with the project, and work together, these will crunch us. There's no way of doing it other way. I mean, this is bean counting, pure bean counting. You invest more, you do more advertising, you do more of whatever. So I think that this, at LibreOffice, we don't have any other choice. I mean, if we want to stay open source, if we don't want to change our license, this is the only solution that we have, is to continue to have ecosystem company investing 50-50, and as let's say, I put myself on the side of volunteers at this moment, as work together with the companies to make their investment in open source as effective as this. Theory, of course, but if we don't work together, this will not grow in terms of, we will never grow the cloud around this 50%. We will never grow the perception around this 50% that, yes, that is the 50% that they're putting on their product, but behind them, there is a community that is helping them. And we can find ways, just to make an examples. Of course, if you change, in this case, you change the license, okay? If you don't change the license, that means, and let's make the names. Let's say that Allotropia develops a feature that, and put into the basket of the open source, the LibreOffice basket of open source. This feature will improve Collabora's product and vice versa. Collabora's feature will allow Allotropia, basically, they will, let's say, they will support their competition by giving features to others, and we volunteers, we give features to them, and they give features to us. So only if we maintain this, it's a positive spiral that grows, because then hopefully there will be another ecosystem company that allows them, gives them features to add to their products, and they can build off on those features, and we can together have a better product for a better free software product, and a better free software product for the businesses, which means that they will have to contribute back in some way back to the project by becoming another ecosystem members, by buying solutions, by buying development. Ways can be different, but this, I think, is the only way. Then you don't know where I live, but I can give you my address. It's not a problem. If you want to blame me, do it. But I've really tried to think a lot about this because I think that if we don't improve as a group that way, we are losing our time. Mike, you have a question?
slide to non-companies, because here you discuss a company that is maker versus a company that is taker. But I want to also say that the community is not does not consist only of companies. And when you extend it, there are makers who are volunteers and takers who are users. I'm sorry. So I wanted to say that too much focus on doing everything for users, not in any way, but we should balance here to not forget that this same picture may apply there too. So I totally understand why we should grow the user base and so on, but I also think that Uwe's idea that our audience should, as a project, should be more focused on contributors, to be contributors, should be not compromised, to not become detrimental to makers.
But what I was saying is that we have to grow the project, so we have to grow contributors as well. At the moment I'm focusing on the, let's say, the economics. But of course, I started before that we have to grow the ecosystem, which means grow volunteers and grow companies and grow contributors anyway. But I'm trying to focus on the economics because I think this is a key part. If we don't sort out the economy, then it's a risk for everyone.
Said, let us improve the quality of user support on a previous slide. But
I said customer, yeah.
Well, the questionnaire was run against customers of what? I'm sorry. Maybe I mistook the previous slide, but there was a graph that told about perception between perception of who are those respondents. Who are respondents of this?
This is done by analysts. They will never tell you who are the. This was done by Spice for Gartner and IDC.
I just claim that this is not customer support in some very specific sense. I would claim that this means user support in this case.
If I may add something, it is really, really important that you realize this is the picture the people have of
us.
This is not the reality. Believe me, I had a really nice experience of having to install a Microsoft Office license 364 locally on a PC of a customer. I tell you, in the time this needed, I could have installed about 4 or 5 LibreOffices with no problems. So the ease of install is a fiction, but this is the perception of the people out there. This is not the reality, this is the perception. And this is about customers, not about users.
Look where Microsoft Office here in customer support. We all know that it's lousy. And it's just because the name is Microsoft, the perception is that is okay.
Okay. Come a little bit
there was Eyal, sorry. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Apart from this maker-taker discussion, which is an important discussion with its consequences, but you can do it in days, I think. You know, 90%, I'm pretty right with you with two things I want to disagree, so I point this out. The concept of lobbying in this area, I think we have to rethink. Lobbying is per se not a bad thing. It's the way you are doing lobbying. You know, I'm doing a lot of my time in doing
I'm a registered Italian PR professional, so
even in Germany, the thing lobbying have a really bad thing. And when we do lobbying in the way we understand it, trustworthy, then we get a lot of answers saying, yes, I want to talk to you because I know that you are trustworthy. So don't disqualify the thing lobbying itself. We should disqualify how it is done by others with corruption and so
absolutely.
on.
But I said that you can have lobby, which is the monitoring part and the informing part, which is absolutely correct. The problem is that what is behind.
Yeah.
I mean, I can spend hours talking about lobby companies in Italy. We belong to the same association. I'm a member of FERPI, which is the Italian Association of PR Professionals. And there is people that in the same time that I've been a member, which is almost 40 years, have kind of 10 to 20 claims to the probiviri per year. So, because they for bad behavior. And people has been thrown from out of the association because they got to a level where they caught a person with a briefcase with all 50 euro cut in half. And he said, but it's normal, I don't trust to bring all the 50 euros with me, of course. This is not the lobby that we want to do.
Yes, but a good lobby.
Exactly.
And I want to motivate to do more lobbying.
Sure,
There's
Paolo there.
A second idea I got out of, or a second view out of my lobbying work. There's also this under this point out. This is very important because lobbying gets its results now with the ideas of digital sovereignty. But there's also a risk. If we are doing not this, what you are mentioning, there's a window of opportunity. And we have to handle expectations. Expectations are, okay, if I want to change to migrate to LibreOffice with the government, I need 1,000 consultants to do that. So where are the 1,000 consultants? And we have to manage these expectations and see that this window of opportunity will sometimes close and it will backfire to us, and then this will happen.
Yeah. Then.
So I want to push back against not necessarily your conclusions, but some of your assumptions or assertions. First is what the meaning of sustainability for a software project is. And I would say that income or flow of money is not the essence of sustainability. It is secondary, and the most important or the core measure of sustainability of the project is time spent by developers maintaining and updating and expanding it. And of course, it's beyond a certain size of a project and complexity. There is need for money and other like economic resources to make that happen. But it's the wrong core measure, I would say, which also kind of echoes what Mike was saying, and that's one point. The second point is the partial assumption that work on software goes in the way of forming for-profit companies, and that, or even that office productivity should be conceived as a market. So, usage of software is not a market. If anything, our goal, or part of our goal, should be to destroy the market of software productivity, to make it so that those $30 billion or whatever disappear and are replaced by, say, 10%, 5% of that, or whatever, the amount that is necessary to, is not paid for software, mostly not paid for software, but somehow indirectly goes into supporting free software that caters to these needs. Just like there isn't a market for browsers. People don't pay for web browsers, although a lot of resources do go into making and updating browsers. I would say more, but that's enough for, well, a comment.
Thanks. Well, I think Lothar already said some part of what I wanted to say in regards to lobbying. In a way, I'm doing a bit of that in Luxembourg. Well, in the good way, actually trying to promote open source in general, and actually LibreOffice in various institutions. And that, I think, is something that we should actually do more, so do the good lobbying. Going there and actually show them that there is a community, there are alternatives, viable alternatives, because for years I've been talking with the European institution, even the European Commission, and say, well, you know, there's no way out of Microsoft Office, is too complicated and things like that. And that is, you know, as you say in technical terms, bullshit. But then naturally they need to see the community out there. They need to see also the opportunity of engaging with consultants that allow them to make this migration. So, you know, in that sense, being able to form more consultants, more professionals that are able to engage in these activities are well, is quite important. Then there are also additional studies that probably, Italo, you could put in that list in terms of open source funding. There is a research to which I participated in 2021, so last year. It's been published just recently, in funding mechanism to fund open source projects, even from the base, even from very small groups, and then going up. So there's a lot being done from that point of view, and we should be there, present. So maybe invest time for Italo to be present in Brussels, me in Luxembourg, and then exchange information to make sure that the European Commission actually sees us out there. Because if we are not seeing there, we don't exist. So that means that the only one that exists is Microsoft in a way. You know, and just one comment in terms of growing the project in a way. I always thought that, you know, we have to be seen. We matter because we have a certain number of users. So for us, users are an asset. So if we have, you know, 10 users, we don't matter. If we have 100 million, well, it's already something. When we start getting 500 million users out there, I mean, we are powerful. So then at that point, we can even go out and get even more money, for example, European investments and things like that. And that number is what allows us to expand the ecosystem. If the users are not there, companies cannot go there to make the migrations. That's it.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted very quickly to, well, say I love the presentation, but beyond that, I think the browser model of a totally demonetized paradise ignores the very serious privacy problems that underpin the whole browser ecosystem and that fund all browsers, pretty much. So like, you know, it's all very well saying that Firefox is this wonderful independent project, but we know that Google props them up massively because the default, which is critically important, is to give all your data to Google. So you're basically, it is a privacy-funded ecosystem, and I don't think, and the desktop model is so radically different that we need to find, I mean, there are no giant search monopolies to pay us money to sell privacy, if you see what I mean. That was the first thing. The second thing is that I just want to agree with Paolo briefly. Just why not? I know. Yes, refreshing, hey. So I think there is one source of economic advantage that TDF has, which is its users, and I don't know that we exploit that as well as we could. There are many sort of partnerships we could make with other companies. I think of the Grammarlys of the world, although they're proprietary, but there's the language toolers of the world, and there are people that print things and so on that we could work with to exploit that user base to make money. And I think there are obvious business tie-ups that without sacrificing our charitable status or ethos that we could make to grow investment in TDF. So, thanks.
So let's go to the end. I've already mentioned this. This is not the right answer to make open source sustainable. So this is what we did when we started. I think now we have to relaunch our own relaunch of innovation. After 10 years, 12 years, I think we should probably restart with the same enthusiasm we had in 2010, which is not easy, but we should try to restart and being enthusiastic about the software. I don't think we are as enthusiastic as we were in 2010. Objectives. You know, the objective is to be the best free open source Office suite. Use the leverage the LibreOffice, which is now an umbrella brand. LibreOffice, with the concept of LibreOffice technology, is an umbrella brand because there is the transactional engine. All this is LibreOffice. So most of what we do is based on the LibreOffice technology, and LibreOffice is the main product based on the LibreOffice technology. So I think we have to make it clear, and we have to invest more on the LibreOffice technology, because I think that this makes us different from the other Office suite in general. The next 10 years, leverage the LibreOffice technology, change the perception that we are a software vendor. Probably, I think we have, it's now time to develop something which is more visually distinctive for TDF than being just a tagline on the LibreOffice logo. So I have a TDF logo which is independent from the LibreOffice logo, and then we leave the tagline under LibreOffice, because that, of course, is our flagship technology and product. But I think we have to go to the next step. You know the LibreOffice technology, but in general, I think that this is what we should start, because I've used this in many environments, so with technical people and with non-technical people. And I can tell you that the non-technical people that, of course, do not, the difference is that the technical people starts to look at the symbols. So it's a word processing engine, UE, docx. So the technical guy focus on the definitions. The non-technical guy looks at the next question from the non-technical guy is, does it mean that if I use it on the web and on the desktop is exactly the same? And the answer is yes. Because I know that it's not the same for Microsoft Office. They are different. So they already catch the other, because they have issues in transferring files from one version to the other. So they showing this, it's a very visual, transferring a visual perception, and of course you have to be in front of them, but learn how to use it. because this, for non-technical people, it's really easy to catch. So start using, and if you think that this is not enough, right, Italo, you should elaborate the next one, and I'll try to light up my own fire on my place, not go to Kaulan this time. And at night, with the druids that assist me, find the next marketing gimmick for the project. But let's challenge each other. I have to make a presentation in 10 days to 7-year-old guy. Can you help me? Yes, I can try to help you. Then maybe I'm not good enough. But let's work together. If someone asks me, I need to make a technical presentation, I want a technical presentation on LibreOffice, I will never prepare the slide. I will probably call some developer and say, do you have slides to lend me, because I don't have the technical slides. So let's work together, all together, developers. And if you have the doubt that what I say is not correct, let's talk, because I can assure you that I don't invent anything. Of course, I elaborate and I create stories on what you do, and stories are stories. So stories are not code. There are no objects and classes in a story. There are humans and stuff and people. And by the way, I don't know what an object is and a class is. So this is just a monkey repeating the terms that I hear from developers. So let's make this happen. So these are our current users. Of course, it's not precise, but let's say that this reflects more or less the reality. Let's make them the ideal ones. So individual, small business, mainly support with donation. A few free riders, we cannot avoid them. But the majority of universities, enterprises, governments, and whatever, have to give us some money, some contribution, and educate. We have to educate them. So I give you a small story about the Italian Ministry of Defense. When we trained them, we trained the trainers at the Ministry of Defense. So Libre Italia volunteers, a number of them trained the trainers. We had people from the Army, from the Navy, and from the aviation. And at the end, we trained the trainers, and so they started to deploy LibreOffice. And for 6 months, more or less, every night at 8 o'clock, I could put an alarm on it. Generale Sileo called me selling. Oh, we have a couple of bugs on LibreOffice. I said, okay, not just a couple, we have more. You should solve them. Impossible. Why impossible? Because if we solve for free the 2 bugs to you, in 1 year, you won't have LibreOffice at all. So do you prefer to pay for the 2 bugs or to pay for 100,000 Microsoft licenses? Okay. Next evening. We have found another 2 bugs. Okay, nice. And this and at the end what they did, it's as you say, but do you have a solution? I say, yes, of course we have a solution. There are companies that sell a version and they can solve you the bugs. But this is not the Document Foundation, because the Document Foundation is a charity. So at the end, they went to one of the ecosystem companies and made a contract. I don't even know the numbers. So for a number of, which I think in general is about between 30 and 40% of their desktops. It's less probably now. Okay. So I think that if every large organization of the world using LibreOffice gives us 40% enterprise paid desktops and keeps 60%, which were the non-strategic, I told them, just make an exercise. You have to make it. Which are the strategic desktops and which are the non-strategic? You have PCs where you write a letter every week. This is non-strategic. If you find a bug, you will find a workaround. You know, there are they have a huge amount of locations, and there are locations where they have 2 PCs where they just print reports at the end of the week. So if the report is not beautiful, it's a report anyway. So these are not strategic. So they are paying for around 40% of the numbers. And I think that if all the users paid for 40% of the numbers, we would already be in a different condition in terms of economy. So when people ask, don't do the mistake, at least on our side, then companies have their own commercial strategies, and I don't want to discuss them. But don't say, oh, you have to pay 100,000 desktop. Let's discuss on which is the best solution for your problem. You have a problem, you have numbers. I can put you in touch with the right people to solve your problem. But let's say we have to be a little bit creative. Of course, Microsoft answer would be either you buy 100,000 or nothing. We have the luxury of having different answers. So use the luxury of having different answers. So communicate, and this should be a responsibility of everyone. We are not selling. We are just saying, if you deploy the community version today, in 10 years, you may not have a free Office suite which fits your needs, because we are not able to sustain anymore the growth of a software that is professional, secure, and so on and so forth. So I think, and we are, if you say this, you are not selling anything. So if you are a not-for-profit, you are not risking anything. If you just say, it's the reality. I mean, people that invested, the Regione Emilia-Romagna, that in 2012, because of some idiots in the Italian community, invested in Apache OpenOffice, has no product today to deploy. So, and as of course, a big failure like this, they are going back to Microsoft Office, of course. They are not going a second time to open source. But this is exactly what has happened at Regione Emilia-Romagna. Choose the wrong project, the project is fading away, you don't have a product after 10 years. Today, Apache OpenOffice is unusable at professional level. And let's work together. It's difficult, it's terribly difficult. I know that is terribly difficult. But let's say that we find a way of mentioning people and customers or friends. Let's leverage that. And this, we have to leverage that as a group, because of course, no one of us can know everyone. So this is the end. Sorry for being a little bit long, but I think it was something that we had to discuss in a very open and frank way, because we have to make this concept clear. Sustainability and yeah, you can put it first or second, the economics, but if we don't have enough money, we don't have a project. That's of this size, then of course if the project is a small utility that is maintained by one person, that is a different story. That can happen. But we have 120 languages. How the hell a product with 120 language version of the software can live without having the money to support the reach of the 120 community that we are reaching? It's let's just use a little bit of common sense in this. We want to be part of a global project. We need to have the economics that keeps a global project alive. Otherwise, we all are around a small project that was OpenOffice in 2002, where it was just a small group of people supporting the project, and the project grew. So if we want really to support LibreOffice, we have the numbers. We can say, unfortunately, we are too big, but we are too big. We have to keep and grow and become better. And anyway, I will fight for us to grow until I will be part of the project. So I will fight in this direction. Candy.
Hello, hello. So just for clarification, if you can tell, like when you say that we need more money, do you mean we as TDF, or do you mean the entire ecosystem plus TDF?
As a project. As a project. So everyone, ecosystem, as I said, we have to grow the addressable market, because the addressable market means more money for the ecosystem, means of course more money for TDF, probably more donations, more. It's the only way. It's not just TDF. No, I'm talking about a project, the global project, not just a portion of the project. I don't think we can. I mean, it's not silos. We all know that as much as we are at the same time volunteers and paid, and we cannot have a silos where we say this money is there, this money is here. Either we grow the cloud around the project, or it's not going to work. Even if the ecosystem grows too much and the community doesn't grow, because at that point, the ecosystem will be, let's say, eating the community, and we are back at the time of Sun, taking the decisions, everyone, and so on. So, you know, either we grow together, or I don't see a real nice future. Sorry for speaking too much again, but...
Yeah, I have a question, tricky one. What is the role of ODF in the future of the project?
I think you know that I'm passionate about ODF, so I think this is one of our assets. This is part of the design about digital sovereignty, because the users are total control over the file. Of course, not a total technical control, but for instance, I've helped several people to recover their ODF files by unzipping them and sending them back the XML and telling them, you now have the main components, but I'm sure that you are able to rebuild the file easily. And we all know that if you do this with Office OpenXML, apart from developers, it's going to be impossible, because the text is fractioned and in a way that is not user, maybe technically perfect, but is not user accessible. So it's I think is an important part. Also because on one side it is in this sense, in this case, it's European, so it has different origin from the usual source of all technology. And it's really standard under every point of view. I mean, again, talking about quality of standard and not quality of formats. I think that we have to invest on the quality of the standard, not the quality of the format, because the quality of the format, you can have discussions, me with Regina for probably for two years in a row without stopping a minute. But while on the quality of the standard, there's no discussion. And of course, but we have to pursue interoperability, of course. That is also a key need.
To add on this, if you ask someone to open a file 20 years old with a doc format, I think no one expects it to be opened properly in Word. But thinking about ODF, I could imagine that everyone thinks it is a proper format even after 20 years. At the same time, we fail to bring this into some perception of reliability, as you showed in the picture, which is, of course, result how and who you ask what people think about the products. And it was not a question about LibreOffice, it was open source, productivity software in general. But I think we need to marketing this aspect better if we trust the numbers.
By the way, in this specific point, security companies help us, because there is a Kaspersky research in 2019 that says that 80% of all malware worldwide is carried by a docx file.
Just a quick suggestion. Before we market our unchanging layouts of 20-year-old ODF documents, I think we should talk to Michael Stahl and Miklos. And
no, sure, but I mean, absolutely, we have to. If we entered into this kind of messages, we will double check with competent people. No problem. You know that, Michael, as I said, I tell stories. I never give technical information. Okay, so I think we are, I'm sorry, but for the usual problem, I had to not to unmute my phone because the call for the food is coming in a second. But I think we can have the closing session. So I invite again Florian, Torsten, and Gabriele, who asked to give a message on behalf of the membership committee. Give to the word to them some logistic information. Remember to send the slides either to Sophie or to me. Some people have already done it. So if you want, please remember. There is a short suggestion for an afternoon walking tour for the people that want to stay in this area. So it's all in 1 kilometer from here. Otherwise, we get organized in a different way. We don't know where the conference will be in 2023. We will think about it. I think we will probably see how FOSDEM is going in February before deciding how big and where to organize the conference, because the situation is still not totally under control, not totally easy. So it was possible to do it here, but we never know what will happen in the next months. So I think in March, late February, March, we will decide about the conference 2023. There are some ideas about doing it in European countries. We will get in touch with a potential organizer, and we will see. Because of course the location and all the regulations are key in this case. They were not before, but they are key now. And now, usually we use this time for question, but I think this year we had quite many discussions, so I think just for the greetings, but I mean, you decide what it happens. I'm no one, just the organizer. So the bosses are decide. Okay, so I leave the microphone to Florian, Torsten, and Gabriele.
Not much to add, but I think you said you're just the organizer. I fully disagree with the just. So again, thanks a lot for making this conference possible in challenging times for many reasons. I know that running a conference is really a challenge, even if you have a large team on site, but here on site you basically managed everything on your own, and even were able to organize a very tasty pasta cooking evening together with your wife. And as a little sign of appreciation, Stefan and Mike, you were so kind to help us to organize something. A little sign of appreciation for making all of that possible, and a big round of applause to you. Sorry. Stefan. Okay, hold back a sec.
Otherwise we don't eat, sorry.
It's a hard decision.
So as usual, I need the volunteers to get the lunch boxes outside. They will be on Via Eupli, which is not the place, but follow Emiliano, who is competent.
So thank you very much, and a little sign of appreciation, and thanks a lot for everybody for organizing that. So feel free. Thank you, Italo, very much.
So these are actually from Gabor brought them with him from your region of Hungary. Yes, so Vidagos, Budapest, I can't read any Hungarian, but pralines from us, from Gabor as well.
Thanks so much for making that possible. And from my side, just thanks for everybody who was involved. There were many people behind the scenes. Sophie is usually working a lot. We have Mike, who did a lot. Kloff and Guillem, all the people. I'm sure I forget many. All of the speakers, of course, all of you who made it a long way. Thanks, everyone, for being here, for making the conference possible.
Yeah, just is this on? Oh, it is. Yeah, just to echo that and to second that, and just brilliantly done, extremely well executed, wonderful time here. Everything was working, the food was lovely, location is lovely. So thanks so much, yeah, in the name of everyone, for running another. I think you're getting the hang of it slowly. With running conferences, and LibreOffice conferences in particular. I'm not going to ask you for the next year, but maybe the year after that. So yeah, kudos, like profound thank you, and also to all the other people who made this such a wonderful conference.
Thank you for, I hope you enjoyed. Yesterday was not really nice. The weather was not really nice, but it happens. The city, enjoy the city. If you are staying this afternoon and leaving tomorrow, there is quite a lot to do. If you want to get some shopping suggestion, please ask me. Do remember that everything which is north of where we are, and you can use your phone to see where north is, can cost probably your just one item in a shop can cost your entire annual salary. So be really careful. Be really careful. We have Via Monte Napoleone, Via della Spiga in front of us, Via Manzoni. So the most stupid shop starts from 200 euro for nothing. So be really careful. You may have bad surprises. South of Piazza del Duomo, it's a lot more convenient. You find nice shops and a lot more convenient. If you want to do shopping, of course, which in Milan can be a nice, because it's one of the best shopping cities in Europe at least.
It's not easy to take the microphone from Italo because it's stick in his hand. It's almost impossible to get it. But and indeed, it's almost a little bit sweat. But jokes apart, I wanted to say thank you as well to Italo for all his work, which is not just those days. You perfectly know that to organize such a conference, he's working from months. And also to his wife, who support him every day. And yes, she's been helping in cooking, and you may have seen her on Thursday evening. She's so nice. Then I want to say thank you to all the participants, all the people who came here, maybe investing so much time from far countries especially. Thank you for attending the conference. Thank you for coming to Italy. And on behalf of the membership committee, thanks again. If you have any kind of questions needing, you know where to find us. And thanks again and goodbye.
And the lunch has just arrived, so let's have 5 minutes to unpack the stuff and go. If on Monday, just logistic stuff, on Monday I will come here and pick all the stuff that was in the room in San Fedele. Your roll-ups are there, Michael. If I find something that I don't know, I may publish a picture of it on the Telegram group of the conference Telegram group. I will keep it. If no one answers, either I will keep it for me or I will destroy it if it's not useful. But anyway, if anything happens or you've lost something, I'm here because I live just south of Milano, so drop me an email and I will try to help with that. Otherwise, again, thank you. Have a nice trip back home. Last time, for sure, we will not accept Svante at the conference. No, you know that the first email from Svante was kind of, I'm arriving Saturday at lunchtime. Can you schedule my talk in the afternoon? I said, yes, of course, there's no talk in the afternoon. You can, I mean, you can go to Piazza del Duomo and have the talk in the open. It's not a problem.
With that, and you're here since yesterday.
So anyway, okay. It was a pleasure to support everyone. And thank you. And not goodbye because we greet each other there, but see you for sure next year at the conference, even if we don't know where it will be.